Good day, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the first installment in our over-the-counter slash sports supplement series, creatine. I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure you know at least a little bit about it, but let's get into it. So what is creatine? Creatine is a naturally occurring compound made in your liver, your kidneys, and pancreas, made of those three amino acids: glycine, arginine, and methionine. It is stored mainly in skeletal muscle, then brain tissue, and then your smooth muscle. It's stored as phosphocreatine as well as free creatine. So what does it actually do? Why do we care about it? It functions as an energy buffer. So if you do intense activity, ATP is your primary source of energy. So phosphocreatine donates its phosphate group to regenerate ATP faster so that you can continue to push harder for longer. So how does it actually work? So you get the phosphocreatine system, which is what your body uses during heavy resistance training, sprinting, jumping, explosive movements, as well as high intensity interval training, and then repeated maximal efforts. So it helps prevent fatigue. So how does creatine form? In the kidneys, arginine and glycine combine together to form guanidinoacetate, and then in the liver, guanidinoacetate is methylated to produce your creatine. Your body produces between 1 to 2 grams of creatine daily, obviously depending on your size, and you will then also get some already formed creatine through your diet, mostly red meats and fish. So those following extreme diets, like vegans and vegetarians, normally have lower levels of creatine and generally get a more robust response to supplementation. So again, how does it work? Its primary mechanism of action is through ATP regeneration, which increases your ability to recover, improves power output, and increases effort tolerance. It also causes cell volumization, which means it pulls water into your cells, which makes them more hydrated. The stretch factor has a very mild anabolic signaling, so it helps you grow muscle. And then it also enhances your ability to store glycogen and controls blood sugar by enhancing glucose uptake into your muscle cells. Both those things together lead to improved training capacity. Improved training capacity means more mechanical tension and more work, which means more robust hypertrophy stimulus. It also works via satellite cell activation, which helps to enhance your muscle repair slash recovery. And then recently, a lot of research has been going into its neuroprotective and brain effects. There's a lot of evidence to show that it enhances your brain energy metabolism, especially enhancing cognitive resilience under stress, such as when you are sleep deprived. And there is some very mild clinical benefit in depression, Parkinson's, and traumatic brain injury patients, such as footballers, not soccer, football, or rugby players. Then we get types of creatine. The most common kind is creatine monohydrate. It's the most studied, the cheapest, and has the best safety data of all of the forms of creatine. Then we get buffered creatine, which claims to cause less bloating and have better absorption, but clinical evidence doesn't have any meaningful difference between the two. Then creatine HCl, which claims better solubility, like buffered. It also claims it needs lower dosing, and it is typically the form available in capsules. Then creatine ethyl ester, which is supposed to have superior absorption compared to all forms, but it has essentially lost the battle in every single study. So how do you take it? Your average muscle creatine is about 120 millimoles per kilogram of dry muscle weight with an upper saturation of 160. So supplementation increases your intramuscular phosphocreatine, increases water retention, and increases ATP regeneration. The typical starting dose of creatine monohydrate is about 5 grams daily. It often comes in a powder mixed with water, or it can be taken in capsule form depending on the brand you get. However, creatine HCl, which is probably arguably the second best form of creatine, the research shows that it typically only needs 3 grams daily, but 3 grams compared to 5 grams of HCl, 3 grams to 5 grams of monohydrate doesn't really make that much of a difference, realistically. Some people recommend a loading phase of 10 to 20 grams for 7 days to achieve muscle saturation faster. But if you have a sensitive tummy, maybe don't do that. You may get a tummy ache. The timing doesn't matter as long as you stay consistent. As long as you consistently take creatine, or an adequate dose daily, you will reach muscle saturation. Whether you reach it in 7 days or 2 weeks, doesn't matter, you will reach it. What you can do though to enhance creatine uptake is co-ingest it with protein and carbs, because the insulin spike can enhance the uptake of creatine. So what do you expect on creatine? Most users actually don't report any immediately noticeable benefits. And the keyword there is noticeable. Creatine is so well studied that we know it works. For some people, it may work minimally, so much so that they don't really notice it. Some people see a massive difference. They see strength gains, weight gain. It depends on the person, but creatine, according to the research, does work. One way you can tell whether or not it is working is whether in those first 1 to 2 weeks of supplementation, assuming you keep your diet the same, you can expect to gain 1 to 3 kilograms of water weight. So like we said, it has a few benefits. Strength and power are its greatest benefit, which improves maximal strength and explosiveness. It also indirectly increases muscle hypertrophy due to better recovery and better training quality. Then again, we said recovery. For your brain, it improves working memory and improves cognition with low sleep, and it can also be mood supportive. That being said, creatine is not a treatment for mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. It can just be a helpful adjunct. And then especially useful in the elderly and those who are chronically ill, because it can improve your functional strength and make people in general less frail. So as common side effects, mild water retention, not very noticeable though, temporary weight gain due to the increased fluid in the muscle tissue, and then GI upset, like most medications. So in healthy individuals, creatine is not nephrotoxic at standard doses. Just note that if you take a blood test, creatine converts to creatinine during turnover, which can cause a falsely raised creatinine blood reading. It does not necessarily indicate renal injury. If you are concerned about renal injury, it is recommended to stop creatine for at least a month, get it retested, and see whether the creatinine has come down or not. There's no evidence of hepatotoxicity in healthy people, so the liver is safe. And there's a few studies suggesting that creatine can cause hair loss by indirectly raising DHT, but creatine itself is not directly linked to hair loss. People who are going to go bald are going to go bald anyway. So, who is it for? It's usually taken by athletes in nearly all sports to improve performance and recovery. And then it's recommended for people with a low baseline of creatine, and those with predominantly type 2 muscle fibers. Those with a high intake of meat and naturally high stores may see less benefit, but will still benefit. It's very difficult to get 5 grams of creatine a day from diet alone. So, what are some common myths and misconceptions? Creatine is a steroid. No, it's not a steroid. It is not hormonal. It damages the kidneys. There's no evidence to support that in healthy users. Alcohol, that we all know, is nephrotoxic, damages your kidneys, damages your liver, damages your brain, but yet people consume it all the time and it is socially acceptable. You do not need to cycle creatine, and creatine does not make you fat. It also does not make you bloated. You may feel a little bit of more water retention, but it's not the same thing as bloating. There you go. That is essentially creatine in a nutshell. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next lecture.